Hello and welcome back to Everything Boats with Captain Frank Lanier, where we discuss boats and boating, from maintenance and repairs to seamanship and safety, as well as everything in between. This podcast is a companion to my YouTube channel of the same name, so if you like and find it useful, be sure to subscribe and please check out my YouTube channel as well, where you'll find hundreds of informative videos on pretty much every boating topic imaginable. For today's podcast, we're going to discuss how to conduct a test sale when you're trying to narrow down which boat you want to purchase. If you're in the market for a boat test sale is a great way to weed out potential lemons before spending your hard-earned cash on a marine survey. Sure, you could ride around with a mango margarita in one hand while the broker regales you with tales of faraway exotic lands. However, a smarter move would be to approach your test sale with planning and a critical eye. Here's how to glean as much info as possible about your potential purchase during a test sale. Test sale versus a sea trial. What's the difference? Well, a test sale is typically shorter than a formal sea trial, so you probably won't have time to do all of the tips we're going to talk about here shortly. If that's the case with your test sale, concentrate on the ones you feel will yield the most information in the amount of time you have. If you're not 100% confident in your ability to do any of them, just leave those for your surveyor to conduct during the official sea trial. A couple of things to consider when you're doing a test sale. One, leave the kids and the dog at home. Approach the test sale as a fact-finding mission, not a joyride. Restrict your guest list to those with an immediate interest in the boat buying decision. This means you can stay focused on the vessel's performance rather than whether your kids are behaving or if Fido's watering the upholstery. Another consideration is that from an evaluation standpoint, a test sale is more informative if conducted in less than ideal conditions. I'm not suggesting that they be carried out during a hurricane or during any unsafe condition for that matter, but it stands to reason that if you are buying an offshore sport fisherman, for example, a short run offshore would probably tell you a lot more about handling characteristics than a 10-knot cruise along some calm waterway. The first thing you want to ask the broker or seller when setting a day and time for the test sale is that they don't warm up the engine prior to your arrival. You can learn a lot from a cold start, but the most basic observation is how hard is the engine to start? A perfect time for weak batteries and other such problems to make themselves known. For example, excessive smoking during a cold start, first thing in the morning, for example, could indicate oil leaking onto the pistons, something that wouldn't be as noticeable if the engine is started prior to your arrival. And let's be honest, most people, when they're selling a boat, they like to warm things up because they're all kind of paranoid, that something's not going to start or not going to work. So they'll crank the boat up, let it idle a little bit just to make sure. They'll do that before you arrive, unless you tell them not to. Try to arrive a bit early to the dock so you can familiarize yourself with the boat prior to getting underway. Check the bilges, bilge water level, presence of oily water in the bilge, etc., and compare that with how the bilges look once you return to the dock. Check or ask that the engine oil and coolant levels be checked, as well as the transmission oil level before and after the trip, confirming correct fill levels and noting any changes that could indicate leaks. It's good to do this for hydraulic steering systems and trim tabs units as well, if applicable. Check the generator oil and coolant levels if so equipped, and ask that it be started at the beginning of the test cell and placed under as much load as possible, such as turning on the air conditioner or heating. Let it run during the entire test cell so you can observe its operation. Placing a clean drip cloth under both engine and generator prior to getting underway will make oil leaks or any type of leak more noticeable once you're back at the dock. Record your engine and generator hour meter readings before and after the test sale to verify that they're actually working. Once the seller has started the engine and generator, if there is one on board, take a moment to conduct a visual inspection for any fluid or exhaust leaks. Note the engine idle RPM. If it's greater than 800, it may have been bumped up to cover an idling problem. Ask that the engine be revved up to the 2000 RPM range, unloaded, to see how smooth the throttles operate and how the engine itself responds, noting any hesitation or bucking when throttled down. While still firmly tied to the dock, ask that the vessel be placed in forward, neutral, and reverse to check shifting, once again noting any unusual noises like chattering of the reduction gear or whatever. Once underway, record oil pressure and coolant temperature volts, gearbox oil pressure, etc., for each engine during various speeds: slow, throttle, half, full, and cruising speed. Record each of the above at all helm stations to compare readings and to verify gauge operation. In other words, if you got a flying bridge and you got a pilot house helm down below, you want to record the gauge readings to make sure that they jive with each other. If you have a non-contact or infrared thermometer and you're comfortable working around engines, here are a few additional things you could try to look at. One thing to note, however, is always be safety conscious and use appropriate safety gear, goggles, hearing protection, etc., when working around hot engines and any rotating equipment. Check the temperature of the engine oil pan, which is typically between 190 and 220 degrees, depending on the engine. Higher pan oil temps could indicate a fouled oil cooler, something you may be able to verify by comparing oil temps at the oil cooler intake and discharge. Temperatures should differ significantly if they're working properly. This works for transmission oil coolers as well. Use your non-contact thermometer to sweep the exhaust manifolds and risers for hot and cold spots. Manifold temps should be within 10% or so of each other. In other words, if you have a port and starboard manifold, the temps you record should be within 10% of each other, while riser temps should be fairly close to the cooled part of the manifolds. Hot spots noted in any of the above could indicate blockage. Check all exhaust systems for coolant or gas leaks and listen to the muffler at idle for internal rattling, which could mean broken baffles. You should also note the temperature of the stuffing box. The higher it is above ambient temperature, the more urgent the need for inspection and possibly maintenance. While underway, inspect stuffing boxes, dripless shaft seals, and rudder glands for leaks. It's not unusual for these to be dry at the dock, but for them to leak when the vessel is underway and making way. Check the shaft for vibration at various speeds. If there's a visible wobble, you can get a rough idea of how bad the problem is by touching the top of the gearbox. If you can feel it there as well, the issue needs to be corrected sooner rather than later. If there's an engine manual on board, note the manufacturer's maximum recommended RPM. A lot of times the engine data tag will also have it on there. Then after the engine is warmed up a bit, ask that the engine be ran at full throttle for a short distance. If the owner's piloting the boat and you ask him to run it up to wide open throttle, he'll probably hem and haw and say, we don't really never run it up that high, but if there's nothing wrong with the system, the engine, it'll be fine running it up to wide open throttle for a short distance. But if they say they don't want to do it, then that's fine. Don't press the issue and just let your surveyor do it when he does his official sea trial. So the RPM that you read at wide open throttle should be within 100 RPM or so of the specs, depending on the engine. A maximum RPM higher than recommended could mean the prop is too small, while a lower RPM could indicate a prop that's too large in diameter, pitch, or both. While running at maximum speed, wide open throttle, verify that the actual speed matches the advertised speed. In other words, if they said it'll go 30 knots, is it really going 30 knots? This is also the time to look for any unusual sights and sounds, burning smells, smoke, vibration, and the like. Boat handling checks. It's always best to ask whoever is captaining the boat to perform any maneuvers or engine operational tests that you'd like to observe, rather than taking control of the vessel yourself if offered it. It's a move that could place you in a liability situation. Along those lines, give the captain a heads up on any maneuvers you'd like him to perform prior to leaving the dock. During the course of the trip, they'll probably offer you the helm in efforts to increase your purchasing bloodlust, but make sure they're maintaining the helm during any test maneuvers, as we just mentioned. You should also reiterate that they're in charge of the vessel's operation at all times and should stop immediately if they feel a maneuver is unsafe for any reason. Standard maneuvers to check while under power include a back-down test and a figure-8 turn. The back-down test, reducing throttle quickly while shifting from cruising speed to neutral, then to reverse, and then increasing speed. This lets you check the engine mounts for excessive movements. Just be sure to provide sufficient time when shifting between forward and reverse. Worn or misaligned engine mounts can cause shaft alignment problems, meaning the mounts themselves may be bad or due for replacement in the near future. Figure eight turns at cruising speed are useful to verify maneuverability, handling, and that the vessel has an equal turning radius to port and starboard. Additional checks for sailboats include raising the mainsail, unfurling the jib and check for smoothness of operation, and to inspect each for broken or sun-deteriorated stitching. It's also a good time to check all reef points and lines. If unclear how the reefing system works, now's the time to ask. Check all sail hank and snap-on hardware as well as operation of the roller furling system, if it's so equipped. One way to get a good feel for the roller furling system is hold your hand on the furling track or drum and turn it. Hard or rough movement indicates the bearings may need to be replaced. A lot of these things utilize composite or plastic bearings, and they can get flat on one side, cause it to jump. Continue by checking the condition of the furling line, particularly where it's connected to the drum, and all running rigging, halyards and sheets and such. If conducting maneuvers under sail, try a variety of tacks from close haul to downwind to check handling and vessel reaction. It's also a good time to check daggerboard operation, if so equipped, as well as any downhaul systems on board. As you can see, there are plenty of things you can do to make a test sail productive, but that doesn't mean you can't have a good time as well. You can still listen to the raucous tales of the owner or broker. Just tell them to hold off on the margaritas until after your work is done. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And if so, and you want to buy Captain Frank a cup of coffee, please click on the support link in the text description below. All monies received, not spent on coffee, will go towards making even more awesome podcasts for my channel. And as always, thank you for your support.